Making their protagonists miserable seems to be a new trend for fantasy light novels. Konosuba gives Kazuma incompetent companions, ReZero has Subaru die over and over and over again, and Haitu Genso no Grimgar leaves Haruhiro pathetically weak. The story I'll be reviewing today continues this trend by thrusting its protagonist in a world with RPG mechanics while completely disabling his ability to attack. In a world where fighting is kind of important, this is just a bit problematic for him. But, just like the other light novels mentioned above, it makes for a great story. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present the Rising of the Shield Hero. The protagonist of this story, Naofumi, is a university student who, like so many light novel protagonists before him, is transported from his everyday life to a fantasy world. This particular fantasy world has RPG rules like leveling, class changing, and a quest to save the world. In this case, from waves of monsters that appear every month. There are 4 heroes total summoned to save the world, with each hero coming from a different version of Japan. These heroes are given one of 4 holy weapons: sword, spear, bow, and shield. And as you can probably guess from the title, our protagonist gets the shield. After receiving the shield, Naofumi quickly finds several problems. 1. He can't equip weapons other than his shield. 2. Unsurprisingly, shields aren't particularly useful for killing things. 3. The particular kingdom he's been summoned to has a religion where the shield hero is treated as a demon. Oh, and to make things even better for Naofumi, he gets betrayed, has all his belongings stolen, and gets falsely accused of rape shortly after arriving. Then in the rest of the story, we get to watch Naofumi slowly crawl out of the hellhole he starts in, gain some companions he can trust, get some delicious revenge, and become the hero the world needs. In theory, the story is about the 4 holy heroes saving the world, so let's talk about said heroes. Naofumi is a nice guy in the sense that he's kind and help protects the weak, but he's certainly no hero of justice. He has no problem stealing from anyone who steals from him, he owns slaves, and he revels in vengeance when he can exact it. It is occasionally commented in this story that his actions border on being villainous, but ultimately the results are good, so he remains a hero, I guess. The other 3 heroes are all idiots. Ren, the sword hero, is a too cool for school idiot. Itsuki, the bow hero, is a self-righteous idiot with a messiah complex. And Motoyasu, the spear hero, is a gullible playboy and the biggest idiot of them all. He got stabbed to death by 2 yandere girlfriends he was cheating on in his original world. And, given the girls he has in the new harem he's developing, clearly he hasn't learned his lesson. More useful than any of the other heroes are Naofumi's companions, Raphtalia and Philo, both of whom he bought from a slaver. Raphtalia is a tanuki demi-human, who's calm, compassionate, and in the running for top-tier waifu. When she was bought, Raphtalia was malnourished, had PTSD, and was slowly dying of disease, since her last owner was none too kind. Naofumi gradually nurses her back to health, and Raphtalia becomes devoted to him. While being devoted though, she also does quite a good job of reining in Naofumi's darker impulses and helps act as his moral compass. Philo is a hyper-chatterbox were-chocobo thing, who treads a very fine line between being very cute and very obnoxious. I would call her the mascot character of the series, but she's also one of the most powerful fighters in it. In summary, the Rising Shield hero provides a couple of likable protagonists and a lot of people to hate. The Rising of the Shield hero nails a unique story style. The protagonist can't attack, and spends a lot of time acting as a merchant and a crafter, but the story still has a significant amount of combat. This, I think, strikes a nice balance between something like Spice and Wolf, which for all its yay economics and deep well-written characters is also really slow-paced. And something like SAO, which does great with tension and pacing, but has all the depth of a small puddle. It's fun watching Naofumi explore the world's game mechanics and figure out optimal money-making strategies, but the occasional zombie dragon attack or crazy magicians certainly help liven things up. Also, Naofumi's inability to do anything other than defend is a pretty nice weakness for story purposes. Weaknesses are generally used so that powerful characters can still feel threatened and have some actual challenges to overcome. If the weakness is just a vulnerable body part or a susceptibility to a certain substance, however, the situations where it matters are rather limited, and the possibilities get played out rather quickly. Not being able to attack, though, has much more interesting ramifications. First, it excuses plot armor. since if Naofumi's whole deal is survivability, it's fine for the author to stretch things a bit for him to get out of situations alive. Also, it means he still does have to rely on other people in fights. All the fights then are team fights, so tactics and strategy are always a consideration. No matter how powerful he becomes, Naofumi can never just blast through all the enemies on his own. Finally, it's a very public weakness and directly affects how other people treat Naofumi, so it consistently feels relevant to the story. In a genre full of wish fulfillment characters, the shield hero is a breath of fresh air. Quick comment before I start this. This review is based off One Piece Book's translation of the light novel, and as such, criticism here may not be applicable to fan translations of the web novel or manga. So, the one thing I hate most in anime is when series spend the first few minutes of an episode recapping from last week's episode, or in some cases even have a full recap episode mid-season. It's a complete waste of time. I never thought I'd have to deal with that type of thing in light novels though until I read this series. Literally, every new volume has 20 pages of recap, with the recap going all the way back to the beginning of the story. Really, I don't need to be reminded of who the protagonist is at the beginning of every volume, and yet, my name is Naofumi Iwatani. I was a normal university student with otaku tendencies back in Japan, but all that changed on the day blah blah blah, Fire Nation attacked, blah blah blah. It'd be fine if you could just skip it, but they mix in the recap with new events, so you have to slog through it or you'll miss stuff. As I'm ranting, I'd also like to comment on the lack of development of the romance between Raphtalia and Naofumi. Seriously, after the first volume, scarcely anything changes in their relationship from volume to volume. It just stays as Raphtalia devoting herself to Naofumi, and Naofumi remaining oblivious and treating her as a daughter. Gah! Naofumi, how dense can you be? At least he's better than Motoyasu, whose idiocy stretches the credulity of the most imaginative reader. Let me give an example. Person A poisons Person B. Person A then gets punished for poisoning Person B, and is sad. Any sane person would then say that Person A is responsible for their own sadness. Motoyasu blames Person B. Yeah, the idiocy is beyond mortal comprehension. So there have been a lot of isekai, or transported to another world stories that have come out recently. Quite a lot. And as a result, it makes it a bit harder to recommend reading yet another one. Shield Hero, though, absolutely has that recommendation. It stands out in a crowded genre, with an excellent story, well-written characters, and the whole can't attack twist works quite well. I highly enjoyed reading it. Thank you to everyone who recommended it to me in the comments of my previous videos. Now, if you've already read The Rising of the Shield Hero and are looking for something similar, I would recommend Mushoku Tensei, another isekai light novel with a protagonist whose personality is remarkably reminiscent of Naofumi's. Anyways, that concludes my review. Thank you for listening. Cheers!